So here we are again, and look at the progress that I've made. So I pulled my center housing rotating assembly, chra, off, and if you look really close in this video, you can see right where the middle finger is, and I'm not giving you the bird here, I promise you that. There's this little locator pin, and that will determine what the index, or in other words, how the turbo is clocked in position and relative position to the exhaust housing. And that basically just determines how things go together. It's an easy way to line things up. Now, if you're going to take a 94 to 95 bevel housing, exhaust housing, and 13T, 15G, 16T, etc., I don't really care, conical housing, bevel housing, whatever you want to call that, off, and you want to fit up some bigger compressor housing, you're going to have to do some re-indexing to reclock it. So what you're going to have to do is take that out, that little pin out, and since it's clocked for a front wheel drive car, in other words, the housing just points a different way, you're going to have to take that pin out. It's well documented out there on like Turbo Bricks or wherever. I'm sure there's zillions of other videos that are out there that are like this, though I haven't seen one that really illustrates this little hang up with that locator pin. You're gonna have to file that off, do a little bit of machining. It is really straightforward to do this. In fact, it's almost easier than fudging with horsing around with ordering the right parts and spending lots of money on stuff that you just don't need. You really aren't going to be able to upgrade this housing. Well, two reasons. One, it's small. The smaller it is, the hotter it gets, the less heat transfer, the less it will, the less usable lifetime it will really have, expansion, contraction, etc. You won't get the airflow that you're hoping for, though it can be done, just not with this housing. You need a TD04HL, not a TD04H. This is the generation 1 and 2. And either way, I couldn't reuse this housing just based on that alone. They will not line up. It will be a real pig. Get yourself the right one if you want to do some upgrading. If you want to just do stock transfer, use it, reuse it. There's nothing wrong with it. You want to look inside the housing itself and look for cracks and other things. Now, some of it's going to be normal, some of it's not going to be normal, depending upon the operating conditions. And what you see here is fairly normal for a 28-year-old car with 142,000 miles on it. It's actually in pretty good shape. Looking around in there, things look reasonable with the usual stress marks on it, but nothing detrimental that would say, hey, this housing is scrap. That being said, at this point, besides the fact that I'm still waiting on my parts, which is actually starting to get me a little batty at this point, never mind my tone, we'll move on to the chra, which I just took off. And we can kind of look at inside here and see what's going on. Now this tells me that there's been some formation, poor state of tune before I got the car. And this was by the way, mind you, this was a $900 score on Craigslist. A couple of years back, I got it with 109 on the clock. I've been refurbishing this car since then, and it has been an absolute joy for the most part. To do these jobs. These cars are pretty well laid out. I like them. I've been a Volvo freak since like 99. So I'm kind of dating myself here, but at the expense of dating myself. Just goes to show that, these cars are really well made. Though this turbo is on the small side, with that housing, you can easily tell it's the version 1 of 2. The TD04H's 13 series that are out there now have a different integral CBV housing. This one's a lot more angular. Lift it up so you can see a little better here. This one, you can clearly see the difference with the angular mounting versus the one that's a little more streamlined in design. Taking a look inside here a little further, so you can clearly see it's a TD04H 13C, meaning you cannot reuse the housing, the exhaust housing, to put your 16T or whatever on and expect it to work. It just won't line up. The dimensions are different, not by much, but they're different, and it's really just not worth the extra effort. Though it's kind of hard, if not impossible, to see. Mine has a substantial amount of slop in it. There is enough slop that oil